What's up, everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the Video Game Fight School channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. Today's video is a test. It's a rough draft test. It's not necessarily a foolproof scientific test that you can put together. Why? I'll explain. I mentioned in some of my past videos that you can build a $650 PC that will basically give console a run for its money in many ways than one. If you actually take away the gaming side, this PC that is about $650 can actually help you build video games using Unreal Engine. I can actually open up Unreal Engine files. There are some files that the scope require a bigger CPU, but those are heavy files. However, when you come to basically simple tasks that you can do within the engine, you can do it with this CPU and GPU setup very easily. And you can also play many games, 1080p, wonderful textures, wonderful quality, high settings for the most part, and many of them even the PlayStation games, and you'll be able to do 60 FPS at a minimum, except it's a game like Dragon's Dogma 2, which is right now broken at launch in terms of performance. Now, if we look at the numbers at $650, some of you might say, well, $650 is not what a console costs. I know. However, I did say that it's $650 that it's going to cost you out of the $900 to $1,100 that you spend running the PC. Where do I get this number from? You buy your console for $500, or I bought my PlayStation 5 for $500, and then since then I've been paying for PlayStation Plus, and I will pay for PlayStation Plus for 5 years because my friends play The Division with me, which comes out to $400. If I, on average, spend about $10 more than the PC player on buying my PlayStation games, this is a hypothetical, then it's an extra $40 every year. However, let's just stop at $900 and say with our $650 build, we can build a PC that will give you for a run for his money and still have $250 left, which is this PC I've put together. Video link in the description for all the components. Right now, the components in here are RTX 3060, 12 gigabytes, and a Ryzen 5 5500, 16 gigs of VRAM. When we fire up Spider-Man at 1080, we turn off any upscaling methods and we go ahead and say, let's play the game. We want to see what this game is basically going to be able to give us in terms of performance and in terms of basically being able to run the game at decent frame rates, at decent settings. So that's kind of the goal. We want to give the PlayStation a run for its money and show that those who are interested in coming to the PC front, you have an interesting path to pursue. You have, what I think is a very good way to play your games and enjoy them. Now, here's something. A lot of people might, say, well, you can play 4K on the PlayStation, 5, you can play 2K and all this stuff and those resolutions, and I do agree. But remember, we still have a $250 to even $400 budget. Remember I told you those cost of games? Yes, on average, you'll be paying about $10 for your games. And if we put those numbers in, we're looking at about $1,100 to $1,200, which I can build you a 1440p computer at that point and still get you a beautiful 1440 monitor. Those things are kind of like, going around for about $200 and something. And the difference right now is about $100 on the CPU and $100 on the GPU. And we're going to be sitting at that price point. So again, you still have a lot more room. But if you said, okay, maybe out of the box, what can I get for close to that $500 mark and what performance is it going to give me? Well, here we go. We are now basically, and I did some of this stuff yesterday. We can look at some of the settings just to basically alleviate your concerns. Display settings right here. All of our, variable refresh rate and all of those really interesting upscaling methods are turned off. So basically just raw rasterization at this point, because I wanted to go ahead and ensure that we're not using any upscaling methods right now. And now our level of detail basically, and, geometry, hair quality, all that is all on high settings pretty much. And with those settings, we're able to easily sit on 60 FPS. And at the same time, we can basically scale all the way up to about 100 FPS, depending on what areas we're in. So because this game is beautifully optimized, we can enjoy a lot of those things in terms of performance and, so on and so forth. So again, you notice that there's a skew though. And this is why I said in the beginning of the, game that this is a rough test. I'm recording at the same time as I'm actually making this video. So my frame times and my frame rates are all going to be out of whack. However, I did this test yesterday without actually recording, and the averages were actually much better, which I will showcase in a separate video for you guys so that you can actually see that, do its own thing in a better environment. So this is just, like I said, a rough test. So we're just going to do it. It's just a rough, let's see what's going on here while recording at the same time, by the way, on this $100 CPU, and able to capture footage and do some other cool stuff. We can move on to like God of War. This game is a little bit more tasking. So if you see the 60 FPS dip, also know that it's because my OBS is also on at the same time. If you're, wondering, here it is. And I'm doing all of this while basically providing this rough data, and that's what it is. It's just rough data, pretty much throwing a hypothesis out there. Can we make it work? The answer so far with Spider-Man 1, or Marvel Spider-Man Remastered, is yes. Let's see what God of War can do from just a quick testing perspective. Just kind of, let's see if our $650 can actually push the envelope, which we're actually hamstringing it at the same time, by the way. Keep in mind, we basically have one of its hand tied behind its back and chained one of its leg to like a heavy object when we're recording. That's what we're doing. So that's basically, keeping things behind. So let's see how this works out. Anybody you tell, that you did this, they'll be like, get out of here because the data is skewed. And yes, it is. And you can't really get anything out of it. However, if you wanted to maybe be a streamer one day, maybe you wanted to check out some stuff. What can you pull off? Can you actually, do this with decent frame rates? Can you do it with decent performance? And this is Ragnarok here in Muspelheim. Basically on this particular point here, I'm using original settings. Basically, original settings are the setting system here is very interesting. When you go to graphics, there's original, there's high, there's ultra. It could play ultra, but now I'm actually way past my RAM. And so I can stick with high and I can stick with original. Remember, I was at 650 for my budget. If I added a little bit more RAM, the game will let me do more. But our original settings, which I think is basically close to console performance or high, let's just do high, for crying out loud. I mean, I think this game is optimized so well. We'll still sit at 60. We may get some dips here and there, but it shouldn't be anything problematic when we start fighting and when effects start blowing up and everything. So let's see what's going on. Right? So with heavy effects under recording and all that, we're still over here and we're still able to basically maintain over 60 FPS. So I think, to be very honest, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's quite possible, even without all of this stuff, to be able to do some really, really cool stuff using a PC that is way below your console, running cost, and still be able to get the best out of, say, even the PlayStation exclusives themselves. Now, if you want to play 4K this game, because, as soon as you start getting to 2K and 4K, honestly, there's a lot of diminishing returns. And this is from somebody who has 2K and 4K builds and rigs as well. I use them for production, and I can tell you that those diminishing returns is probably not too sensible for somebody who is on a budget. So 1080 still rocks at the end of the day because you get the visual quality. You have enough room to buy 1080 monitors that give you a lot more in terms of the refresh rates, and still give you some really beautiful visual quality. Not saying that, 1440 is not nice and 4K is not nice, but again, you have to pay premium for that. That's basically the premium side of gaming that a lot of people, will feel that they need to, attain in some instances. Another really interesting thing that I think a lot of people might point out is, these games run at 4K on the console and so on and so forth. I do agree, but there are upscaling methods and upscaling aspects that are used, which if we wanted to basically test out 1440 and 4K here, we'd have to dip into those upscaling. But I was going with raw rasterization at 1080 just so that you can see the capability. I would run Hogwarts Legacy, but it does a shader compilation at the beginning. I'll do it in a separate video on its own. But this is just what I thought would be a good way to just introduce and say, hey, man, here is what you're looking at. Here is the price point. I have a video that I've made specifically to point this out to, a lot of folk out here who may be, I think, interested possibly in moving, their gaming from console to PC. I don't necessarily believe that there should be a hindrance. Here's the video for those of you who may be wondering. The video is right here. If you want to, go ahead and take a look at what I'm talking about here in terms of the prices and the components and stuff, you can pretty much for yourself, go ahead and do some exploration, do some more in terms of research. You can watch videos. You can look at the components. You can look at what your budget is like. And now that the PS5 Pro is pretty much, coming pretty soon, I encourage those of you who are interested, again, if you want to play on console, that's your prerogative, but those who are interested to possibly start exploring stuff like this. Thanks so much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys' time and audience. Let me know if there's any game you would love to see, any benchmarks for. I'll try to get my hands on it if I don't have it, and we can go from there. Thanks again. Peace out.